Hey everybody, it's Tim and Steve from Phantom History House. How are you tonight, Steve?
I am good. I'm excited. How are you?
I am good. Tonight is our big summer wedding giveaway, and we're talking about horror authors. Thank you for watching Phantom History House Calls. So as we mentioned, we're going to be giving away our big summer wedding giveaway since we're now doing wedding things. And here to join us, we're going to say hi to her real quick. Amber Jacks is here from Simple Weddings. Amber, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for being here. So she will be back with us in just a minute.
Wow, that was quick.
She is off. So she'll be back with just a minute. And then also with us tonight to talk about horror authors is Douglas Ford. Douglas, how are you, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about horror authors. What do they like? Why do people decide to write in that genre, that kind of thing? So Doug will be back with you in just a little bit.
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. So we have a lot of things going on. It's Memorial Day weekend.
It is Memorial Day weekend, and if you are looking for a getaway, we are actually running a special this weekend where if you use a special promo code, BONES, you will get $40 off of your stay. And if you are subscribed to our newsletter, you would have gotten that in your inbox today. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that.
Absolutely, because I feel like this is the time of year, maybe because I'm a school teacher and I was a school teacher for so long, but like the end of the school year, everybody's just ready to collapse and they're exhausted. Yeah. So if you're one of those people and you're like, I would love a nice, quiet, peaceful, serene, beautiful place to be for a day or two or three, hope you consider coming here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't believe it's Memorial Day. We looked at each other the other day and we're like, oh, wow, summer's here. But we are going to be out and about this weekend as well. On Saturday, we are going to be at the Harmony House, St. Pete, and they're turning it into the Mystic House for their Intuitive Arts Fair, where we are going to have a booth, and there'll be tarot card readers and crystals and Reiki and all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah, so we hope that you will come see us and help us promote what we're doing here at Phantom History House. And we love being a part of that community. Every time we do one of these events, or even just attend one of these events, we meet somebody that we're really glad we did.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. It's such a friendly community as well. And if you go to our events page, we actually have a link to the event at the Harmony House, so you can learn a little bit more and see their hours. I think it's like 11 to 3 or so. So it's not a very long event, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's their first time holding something like this.
So come support us and support them and come have a lot of fun on Saturday. Probably don't have anything going on. It's
not a weekend.
So,
yeah.
But maybe we might have time.
Yeah. And then a week or so after that, we have Brian Kowalski coming back. Mama will be here on June the 7th, doing tarot card readings throughout the day, and as well as doing his very famous and very popular seance that night.
That's right. And we mentioned, of course, this night we're about to announce our big summer wedding giveaway. Yes. But we are having a big wedding event on Friday night, June 14th. It's a great date night event.
It is a great date night event. And you can come with your significant other, check out the house, meet Amber and her team with Simple Weddings, have a themed cocktail or two, and see the venue and see if it's a place that will fit for what you have in your vision for your big day.
Yeah, it's just a nice night out. We're going to have some baked goods, which I'm going to be taking care of, and charcuterie and stuff. And then you can just wander around the house, see how beautiful it is in the evening, and imagine having your dream event here. And if you happen to book your event or your wedding event between the end of next year, if you book it on that night, we're giving you $500 off the venue fee. That's a big savings.
Yeah, I mean, we're learning as we go through this. Our friends at Simple Weddings have helped us out a lot, and we're really excited to give away a wedding venue prize this evening.
Which we're going to do. But before we do, I want to show a really short little video because we had a fantastic wedding photo shoot here to sort of set up and show what it would be like. You can see how beautiful our venue is. We're so proud of it, overlooking the pond that we have back in the back. So let's watch a little bit of this photo shoot wedding. All right.
So you laugh every time I spin Dawn around after I picked her up. And
so the bride for the photo
Amber's
shoot,
fault.
yeah, the bride for that was her idea. The bride for the photo shoot was our wonderful neighbor Dawn, who amazingly, after about 15, 20 years, still fits into her wedding dress. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, not I'm sure all brides do. Didn't mean to disparage any brides, but anyway, that was a really fun moment when they're like, "Well, pick her up and spin her around or whatever." And then there was something not in the video where I got dipped.
Yeah, you got dipped. I think
Anyway, you don't want to see that.
Yeah.
All right. So
on Facebook.
we hope that you will come to the open house. Let's bring Amber in. Amber Jackson is here from Simple Weddings. Amber, welcome back.
Thank you, guys. I love that video, but it was really fun to showcase your property that day. And Dawn was a great sport. So were you, though. A huge help. And I think it really shows just kind of how magical your property is. So.
Well, thank you. So tonight, everybody, if you've just tuned in, say hello to us in the comments. Thank you, Nikki and Melanie Sue, for watching. Love you guys are watching tonight. And we are giving away, here's what we did. We want to have a wedding this summer. And we were like, okay, so we're going to give away 2 days of the venue here at the Phantom History House, 2 nights here at Phantom History House. Plus, we're waiving our venue fee for hosting the wedding here. So this is actually really huge savings. And then the second prize that we have publicized is that we're giving 1 day to another couple that they can put toward a wedding.
Yeah, and of course, the wedding will be organized and arranged by Amber and her team at Simple Weddings.
Right.
So we're really happy that you're here with us, Amber, to help us with this giveaway.
Yeah, and so,
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're glad you're here. So just really quick, in case anybody hasn't seen, tell us a little bit about Simple Weddings and how people can reach you.
So yeah, we've been here for 15 years now, serving Hillsborough, Pinellas, Manatee counties. We're kind of some of the OGs now on the wedding block, I guess. But we do have offices here in Treasure Island, but like I said, we go anywhere. We'll work at any venue. We have some preferred relationships. Anybody can actually find Phantom History House now under venues on our site, which is simpleweddingsflorida.com, all spelled out. We also have social media. They can find us under Simple Weddings Florida on Instagram or Simple Weddings on Facebook.
Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, everybody, but Doug Ford is here with us, and we're going to be talking about horror authors in just a few minutes. But first thing we're going to do is give away these prizes.
Absolutely.
We're very excited to have this wedding. And so should I just sort of say what's going on?
Say what's going on.
Okay, so we have decided that thank you everybody who entered the giveaway. We're so appreciative of that. And by the way, if you don't win the prize tonight, we hope that you will consider coming to the open house. We still would love to have weddings anytime here in this spooky season coming up in the fall or anytime next year. So reach out to us, come by, see the house, whatever. But the surprise for tonight is we decided to give away 2 first prizes. So we're going to have we're offering 2 weddings to 2 of the couples that applied for this. So we're really excited about that. The first one, should I just go ahead and say it?
Yeah.
Okay, the first one, congratulations to Danielle and David. So congrats, Danielle and David. We're excited to have your wedding. And they were a really interesting story because they had planned to get married back in 2021. And then all this stuff happened, probably no doubt exacerbated by the whole
I'm sure COVID
and everything else. And they just weren't able to make their big dream wedding happen. And so they did go ahead and get married, but we love the idea, and they're interested in doing like a renewal of vows here and actually having the wedding they couldn't have then. Amber, you've probably heard this story before.
Yep. Had many clients in that same boat. And so we love vow renewals. It's one of our favorite things to do. And it's a very special occasion for the couple, especially if they didn't get to have, those romantic photos or that experience of being dressed up and in that moment together. We can give them that.
Right. So congratulations, Danielle and David. We will be in touch with you to begin the conversation, figure out the date, talk with Amber at Simple Weddings and sort of get everything rolling. And we hopefully can help you have that dream ceremony that you missed before. And then we are going to give a second wedding, and I'll let you announce that one.
Yes. Congratulations to Nikki and Andrew, who are going to be getting married here. So congratulations to them. These 2 actually got engaged in March of last year and spent an evening here at Phantom History House in our Ouija room.
This was really cool. Andrew's mother bought them a night here in the Phantom History House because she knew how much they liked like this vibe and the spooky stuff and everything. So they came here. We remember them being here, of course, about a year ago. A little more than a year ago.
Yeah, a little more than a year ago. And one thing I loved about the entry that was filled out, probably by the bride-to-be, I would guess, but no offense, Andrew, but was they talked about descending the staircase, in the front of the house,
which I think is fantastic. Like, seriously, it's such an entry.
Absolutely, you said that for a lot of different events that we've had here, and of course, they love the idea of the intimacy and simplicity of a wedding here. So, Nikki and Andrew, congratulations. We will be emailing you very shortly as well with the next steps, and we'll involve Amber and her team, and we'll start planning your big day.
And Amber, I know when you came to see the house, I mean, it's not hard to imagine the bride making her entrance down that staircase.
It will be stunning. Absolutely.
Well, we're very excited about it. So Danielle and David and Nikki and Andrew, congratulations. We are happy to give away a free venue, have you here and have your event here. We will be in touch with you. Yeah. Amber, thank you for being here for this announcement. Anything you want to say before you go?
I'm excited for the winners, Danielle and David and Nikki and Andrew. I can't wait to chat with you. We will move forward on those next steps and get some things rolling so we can make this happen in we're talking just a few weeks away now. So that's wonderful.
Absolutely.
And Nikki, we see that you're watching. So she says that she's excited. So we're very excited also to have you here. By the way, before you go, Amber, Kristen, who's watching, wanted to know what your favorite part of Phantom History House was when you first came in.
Honestly, it's the two of you.
Aww.
But because we meet a lot of different people in the wedding industry. But beyond that, of course, I love the dining room. I love the potion room, and I love the library. The library, to me, I'm a book person, and I want to sit there and go through all the volumes.
Well, Amber, we're excited to have 2 weddings here now with your help with these couples. So thank you for being here tonight for the big announcement.
Yes, thank you guys. Take care. Douglas, nice to meet you. Guys, have a great evening.
Thank you. So everybody don't go anywhere, because now we're going to talk to Douglas Ford, who is a renowned horror author, and he's going to talk about horror authors. Should we jump right in?
Yeah, we've been lucky enough that Douglas has been out to the house a couple of times. Oh, there he is. Hey, Douglas. And he has brought the Horror Writers Association of Southwest Florida here for a couple of meetings. We have read one of your short stories for one of our book
I read
meetings,
one of his novels.
and you read
The
one
Trick.
of his,
and you can find a conversation with me talking about Doug, talking to Doug with Doug about the book on the website and on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, if you have questions for Douglas, please drop those in the chat. We will ask them for you. But we have a full long list of questions for you as well, Doug, even though we've had you here a couple times.
So can I start?
Absolutely.
Okay. So first off, Doug, we'll let you say hello. How are you?
Hi. And by the way, I love that video. That was amazing. Your house is going to be amazing for weddings. And I'm intrigued. I think it's a huge mistake not to put it in the video, Tim being dipped.
That was not a mistake.
That's for the next video. You got to keep them wanting more.
It's not like a dog being dipped. Dipping a clip. Never mind. That's a whole other thing. All right. Oh, and Nikki's mom is very excited too. So hey, thanks for watching. We're very, very excited about all of this. Somebody says,
yes,
right? I don't have my glasses on.
I'm guessing Sherry might be Nikki's
might
mom,
be, or she at least knows her.
Yeah,
I think it might be.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to start this conversation really quick, Doug, because I think I'll just say it. I think if someone was like thinking, what would a horror author be like? Like I sort of imagine, like a character from Young Frankenstein, like in a hood, walking around with a lantern, like coming through. I know that's ridiculous, but I think we would all sort of assume that like there's sort of that sort of character.
Yeah.
That may be so simplistic. I apologize, everybody who I just offended. But the point I want to make, Doug, is that all of these authors that we've met in the horror genre, they're all like really normal and nice, and that's terrible. I should not start with this. I should.
That's why I usually ask the first question.
Yeah, never mind. Do you want to comment on that, or should we just plan to delete this later?
No. So yeah, I mean, people usually picture the Addams Family, we've got, a monster in the basement, and, also, we all wear black. Of course, I do wear black a lot, so I don't know, maybe some of the stereotypes are true. But, one of the things I've just in being part of the community of horror authors, one of the things I'm always just struck by it is how nice everybody is. You know, it's a nice group. And there's I'm not the only one who's made this observation. And I've heard theories about why horror authors can be such nice people. And one theory is because all the demons are outside on the page, and all the, you know, we're not harboring the terrible things inside. We're putting them on the page, you know.
You have a release.
I've never actually murdered anybody, but people have been murdered in my works a lot. So in horrible ways. And, you know, sometimes I'm giggling when I'm writing it. And, you know, I think, oh, this is, you know, sometimes I'm really sad, though. I'm like, you know, there's a character, for instance, in The Trick that you mentioned a minute ago that I love this character. And I realized, oh, my God, I've got to kill this character. And I was genuinely mourning this character. And I even had to tell my wife, I'm going to kill her. And she's like, who? You know, like, because of course, yeah, I'm killing people all the time. But, you know, she said, you know, and I had to explain that I really, you know, writing this book for so long, I feel such an affinity for this character. It's like a real person. I'm like, she can't make it. And it was just right for the narrative. And so,
well, and you know, the little bit of creative writing I've done, you know, I know you get very attached to the characters you create, because you're like, you're like a little mini version of God with the puppeteer strings. You know, you're running the show.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting question coming from Kristen, and one that I was wondering too. And it's very broad, but where do you typically get your ideas for your story?
From my mom. Well, okay, I'll explain. I don't always know where, the ideas come from everywhere. Sometimes the idea comes from a word, or one of my recent works is The Last Slaughter. And the idea came from a name that my wife mentioned to me. And I thought, oh my God, this name is amazing. I've got to write a scene with a person with this name. And I joke about my mom, but my mom really did give me an idea for a story. And it was really funny because, you know, she was just talking to me offhand, and she was saying, you know, I had this terrible dream where my dad has a pacemaker. She said, I had a dream your father died. And before they could, cremate him, they came to me and said, I had to take out the pacemaker. And she said, isn't that a terrible dream? And by that point, I was writing it down. I went, tell me more. And I ended up writing a story based on this idea. And so after that, my mom said, oh, I can give him ideas. But when she tries to give me ideas, it never works. It's got to be completely,
unprompted and just
and random. And that's kind of where they come from. Sometimes I wake up and I go, sometimes I have dreams where I'm writing or something is formulating, and I'll wake up. If I wake up at the right time, I can jot a few notes down about it. Or if I wait, it's gone by, midday, and it's just, I've forgotten all about it. So
yeah, trying to remember your dreams is so challenging. And I was going to ask you about that. Are there times when you wake up and say, oh my gosh, it's going to make an amazing story? Yeah. And when you read that in the morning, does it make sense?
No, it makes no sense. That's the problem. Every once in a while, though, there's a kernel. And for instance, I was writing a clown story, a horror story with a clown. And of course, everybody thinks of Pennywise and it. Mm-hmm. And I was just really battling this thing. And I woke up one morning and I realized, oh, that's the wrong story. And I don't know if I had a dream. I still don't know. But I realized I just woke up with the idea and went, oh, that's the real story. And it worked. It was just all the problems I was having trying to hammer this thing out were gone. It was like, there it is.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with the creative process. Whatever it is, you have to be able to be flexible with yourself and say, okay, this is not working. I need to change direction. And we have Mickey Kleinbaum watching, and she says, Douglas is one of the best authors of weird fiction today. So that is quite a compliment. So
Mickey, thank you.
and I've had an opportunity to read some of your stuff, and it is very weird and it's very fun. And I also want to share that, we announced last week that we are releasing Phantom Menagerie with a collection of short stories based on items here in the house, and you are one of the authors who are included in that. And I had the opportunity to be able to read your story already, of course, which is about the potion wall behind me, which is fantastic. So when it's available, I encourage everybody to check that out. Now, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Douglas, is, people will say, what's your favorite horror author? People go to Stephen King or Mary Shelley or Bram Stoker, like the big ones. One, what is your answer to that question? And if it's one of those, it's totally fine. And two, do you aspire to be like one of those, or do you want to take the genre in a whole different way and away from that? I mean, how do you kind of frame that in your head?
Okay.
Tough question.
I think the toughest thing for any writer is to find their own voice. And I think everybody starts by trying to be someone else. And there's a whole theoretical school of thought about that called the anxiety of influence. And, I think at one point I really wanted to be Ray Bradbury. I wanted to, write like Neil Gaiman. I'd want to write like Stephen King. And I think it's not to say that I'm fully formed, because I don't think I'm fully formed in terms of the voice I've been developing for these past few years. But I think I don't really try to write like anybody anymore. And it takes a long time to get to that point.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where you start to know your own voice and your own style. But I do have favorites. And I have a short story collection called The Infection Party that I think might be on your shelf in the library. And in the dedication, I dedicated to two of my favorite short story authors, and that's Shirley Jackson and Charles Beaumont. And a lot of people know Shirley Jackson. In fact, we did, Tim and I and Christina Prasad, Elaine Pascal did something on The Haunting of Hill House. Mm-hmm. That's Shirley Jackson's famous novel, but she was an amazing short story writer. And a lot of people know one of her stories, which is The Lottery.
Right.
But she wrote some other short stories that are just fantastic. Charles Beaumont's lesser known, but he was a contemporary of Shirley Jackson, and he wrote a number of Twilight Zone episodes. But his short stories are coming back into print thanks to a publisher named Valancourt. And actually, there was also a Penguin edition of one of his collections. And I find them just, he's not always perfect, but when he's good, I can't think of many writers that are better for me. And Peter Straub is another favorite of mine. He co-wrote The Talisman with Stephen King, but he also wrote novels like Ghost Story and The Throat's one of my favorites of his. And he was just
as a horror writer and horror novelist, what do you read when you're not reading horror, or do you?
No, I do. I mean, I love Tom Perrotta, that novelist. I have a fixation with William Faulkner, and I read Thomas Pynchon and Don DeLillo, two of my favorite authors. And in fact, Don DeLillo, if reading any author taught me how to write dialogue, it was Don DeLillo, who's not a horror author at all. So yeah, it's kind of, you hear writers say that a lot, that you should read outside your genre, and I think it's really true.
Yeah, I agree too. And diversity is kind of like the spice of life. You don't want to read horror all the time. You want to be able to change it up. And this is an interesting question from Kristen, and then I have a follow-up to this as well. But based on your books, do you have a favorite book of your own that you've written? That's a tough one too. That's a child, right?
Each book is pretty different for me, but I guess the question, if I sort of revise the question of if I have my books in front of me and somebody says which one, I often hand them Little Lugosi, a love story, which I think was just a joy to write. It's transgressive in all the ways that I like it when horror is transgressive. And I think I love the characters. I absolutely love the characters in that book. The Trick might be a close second. The Beast of Assaria County too. I love the characters in there. It's really hard. The cliche is, is trying to pick amongst your children, because the books become your children, and it's really hard to pick a favorite.
And my follow-up question to that is, do you have a favorite character that you've created in all of these novels. It kind of
Or short stories.
or short stories. Yeah.
I think I was just alluding to this. Well, gosh, it's going to end up being a spoiler. So I'm not going to say this.
You don't have to
Yeah,
say.
don't have to say it.
We are everybody. Like we all figured it out.
There's a character in The Trick that I think is one of my favorite characters of all time. I love writing this character, and there are things about this character that it was interesting. It was almost like this character is talking to me, and making myself sound schizophrenic. I don't normally hear voices in my head, but it's this character sort of taught me about herself, and originally this character was going to be a minor character. I didn't think it was going to come back to, but I did, and I ended up just loving what this character was about, why this character was important in The Trick. I'd say that's my favorite character that I've
Very
read.
cool. So I want to go back to my original question, which is you've now met, well, you've probably met a lot of other horror authors. Certainly I've met the group that has come here to Phantom History House for some meetings. I've enjoyed meeting all of them. So are there some commonalities that you could find in them? Like, are there certain, is there a certain reason everybody seems to end up in the genre, or something about them that you think makes them likely to have ended up wanting to write in this genre?
I don't know if there's anything common.
There might not be. That might be the answer.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, for some people's trauma. Some people deal with. I have some friends who have ended up in the genre because of a trauma they've experienced, and it's been their way of sort of exercising it. Not exercising it, exercising like Reagan in the movie. But I mean, for me, I'm going to go back to my parents. I mean, my parents really are probably the reason I'm a horror author, and they hate it when I tell this story. But what they would, when I was a little kid, because I'm Generation X. I'm coming out of I was growing up when there were VCRs were new. In fact, when I was a real little kid, there were no VCRs, so it was all network TV. And I had a room at the end of this long hallway, and my parents still live in this house in South Florida. And they would let me stay up sometimes and watch movies late. And I stayed up one night watching Son of Frankenstein, which I still love this movie. And it's an old Universal horror movie. And I was young enough where it was scary. It was really scary. And I realized I'm all alone. It's late. I've got to turn off the TV and walk back to my room. And I was under 10, but my parents knew I was going to have to do that. So they hid in the dark doorways of the other bedrooms, knowing I would have to pass them. And he would leap out at me. And it scared the hell out of me. But I loved it. I mean, that was fun. And and my mom says, don't tell that story. They're going to think we were terrible parents who were abusing you. But no, it was fun. I think I went on to try to chase that feeling as an adult. I want that again, And so when I write, I'm trying to thrill myself, and I know I've got something if I've succeeded. If I want to know how it's going to end, because I'm that kid walking down the hallway, waiting for somebody to jump at me.
That's why people love haunted attractions so much. Speaking of Universal or Busch Gardens or wherever you are in the country, everybody likes those haunted houses and that adrenaline rush. So I totally get it. And this kind of ties into what you were saying. And I know that you and Tim have had this conversation before. But do you know, Kelly's asking this, do you know the ending of your stories when you start them, or do they kind of evolve along with you?
Great question. Okay. A lot of times, no, I don't. I'm writing a novel now where I think I know where it's going, but I've already written a scene today where I'm thinking maybe it's not going where I thought it would. And it was kind of thrilling because there was a lot of energy in writing it, knowing I want to see where this is going. And I'm what you call a pantser. I don't outline. There's some writers who will outline, who know exactly everything is going to happen. I'm not one of those people. I don't know what's going to happen. And I love that. And it's why it gives me a lot of energy to do what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. And you called it a pantser, and that's
pantser, by the seat of your pants.
There it is.
Yep.
And I love that. And I've had authors that I've met, from all genres who sometimes we'll say, the characters are telling me the story and I'm just kind of writing it down. Is that,
Yep.
do you relate to that?
Yes, very much so. It feels that way a lot of times.
Yeah. Again, you're not schizophrenic, but these voices are kind of
Your voices, right?
sending you along the way. Remember, if you have questions for Douglas about his work or about horror authors in general, please put them in the chat. We'll try to get to all of them. Another question that Kristen is asking is about your characters. Are your characters based on people that you've encountered in real life?
Sometimes, I mean, I don't know if sometimes they're sort of fragments of my personality. Sometimes the characters are just such terrible people that I'm glad I don't know them in real life. And, but I try not to, make them too one-dimensional. Sometimes my characters are people I see in the store and I go, I wonder what's going on with them, what their lives are like. I work at a college where I have a character and the Trick, going back to the Trick, I have two major characters. They're based on two people who came in to the college one day asking to see where the registrar was. Mm-hmm. And I was just fascinated by the way they talked and where and I just started imagining where do they come from? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where the characters come from sometimes. Strange.
Yeah. Everybody has a backstory, and we don't always know what that is, and we can kind of piece it together. I'm curious, in your opinion, and this is another broad question, but you're familiar with horror. You grew up watching horror and reading horror. Is there like a trend in horror fiction that you see kind of like that we're on right now or where it's headed?
We're in a renaissance right now with horror fiction, a true renaissance. There are a lot of, for instance, there's a lot of writers today who are writing, who normally aren't considered genre authors, and they're writing stuff that does fit into the genre. It's like I said, it's a renaissance in that a lot of authors who might have been published in paperback, let's say in the 1990s, are in New York Times bestselling hardcovers. Writers like Jennifer McMahon are in the bestseller list frequently, and they're writing horror, and it's kind of neat. There's little subgenres of it that might be up and down. Like I think folk horror got kind of folk horror has become a trend recently, and that's kind of a neat thing. It's been around forever, but nobody ever gave it a name till recently. There are extreme horror authors who are doing quite well in indie publishing, and are making a wonderful name for themselves. So the genre, it's multifaceted, but the neat thing is it's a lot of that seems to be what you see in bookstores more and more.
Now, when you say the term folk horror, what do you mean by that?
Folk horror is a subgenre often involving ancient belief systems rooted in the land that emerge in unexpected ways as a shock to the contemporary world. Examples would be there are three films that are considered the unholy trinity of folk horror: Witchfinder General, Blood on Satan's Claw, and there's a third. The Wicker Man. But you see, there's contemporary writing right now that is in a lot of ways mirrors that aesthetic, that trend. It seems to be showing up more and more.
Okay, yeah, and thank you for explaining that. And I've seen one of those three movies. I got to watch the other two. This is a really interesting question from Melanie Sue. If someone could write you, Douglas Ford, as a main character, what would you like to see your character do or be?
Well, Melanie Sue. Melanie Sue is a fine writer. So if she would like to turn me into a character, just make sure that I don't put milk on my cereal. Never do that. So I'm trying to answer the question seriously. I am probably many of my characters already in some ways, and somewhat hapless and fumbling their way through life. So Melanie Sue, if you're listening to this answer, feel free to put me in whatever you want.
Okay, so
Die in a remarkable way, though.
okay, so we do have to back up and talk about this cereal thing. So, like, seriously,
I don't put milk
you
on my
never
cereal.
put milk on your cereal?
No, I never put milk on my cereal.
This is something you were doing as a little kid too?
Yes.
Well,
Absolutely.
Do you put cereal in your milk?
No, I don't do that.
Or you don't do eating milk?
In my coffee, maybe, but no.
So wait, when your family, when you were, I know that we're totally off topic, but this is where, so when you, did anybody else in your family, did they
No.
all have cereal dry?
Yeah, I'm a weirdo even in my own family, so no. You know.
So you're like, your mom would be like, here's your Captain Crunch, and then she'd start to pour the milk, and you'd be like, no.
And it's got to be Count Chocula. Remember, I'm a horror author. Count Chocula, Frankenberry.
Melanie Sue just called you a serial killer, which is
Yes.
brilliant.
That's it.
You must be a
She
writer.
must be a writer, so sharp.
She's a writer too.
By the way, I hope she doesn't mind if I tell on her. I guess I can do this, but it's her bio for the book, you know, because each of the she's one of the authors that's in the anthology coming up that we're publishing here at Phantom History House, Phantom Menagerie, and in her bio she says something about seeing The Exorcist as like a toddler or something, as a young like if she thinks credits her for her interest. Speaking of why horror authors become the way they are, do you want to clarify that, Melanie? If you're watching, you can put that in the comments, because I do think I think a lot of people, like, he already described it. He saw a very scary movie early on, and it sort of imprinted in him that was exciting, and he liked that feeling.
Yeah, exciting, but also fun and safe, you know, at the same time, and exciting, I would think.
But then I also saw, okay, so I'm not trying to one up Melanie Sue, because that is impressive to watch The Exorcist when you're that age. But when I was a little bit older than that, I saw my dad was watching Don't Look Now. And I'm going to give a shout out to Elaine Pascal and if she's listening, to remind her to watch Don't Look Now. I found out she's never seen this movie. I saw the end. If you know that movie, the end of Don't Look Now traumatized me as a kid. I couldn't sleep after that.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's based on Daphne du Maurier novella.
I'm really impressed with Daphne du Maurier these days. Everybody, I totally was all about Rebecca for like.
You got to read Don't Look Now and watch the movie, which starred Donald Sutherland, and it was an early '70s film, and it's gorgeous. It's set in Venice, and they use these on location scenes in Venice, and it has one of the freakiest endings of all time, and it still freaks me out. I got to brace myself to watch it.
Wasn't it Donald Sutherland that was in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
He was in the first remake of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I wonder if
the Snackers. I'm thinking about cereal.
But I mean, because that has a scary ending too.
Yeah.
Wow. By the way, Doug, you may not know this, but we recently watched a classic horror movie. Did you?
Oh, really? What was it?
I have not. No, we watched Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I've never seen before. We loved. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was terrified. I mean, it's such a great psychological thriller.
Mm-hmm.
They had me wrapped around their finger the whole time.
That would be another great one for your if you ever want to do another book talk. The novel by Ira Levin is amazing. It's so good.
Well, we talked about wanting to read it because the
really
movie
good.
Yeah, that was scary. Okay.
Well,
So
one thing I
not as
hear,
scary as his cereal thing.
one thing I hear a lot of authors say, you know, again, all genres, is that coming up with that ending is one of the hardest parts. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes. I think the ending is tough. I mean, but I also think the beginning is tough. The middle is tough. So I don't know if anything is, stands out as being harder than anything else. I just know it's such a relief to get to that ending when okay, I found it. This is it. And this is how it should be. And now I can slip out the door and say, this is done.
Right.
It's a great feeling.
When you finish a short story or a novel, do you find yourself missing those characters? Or are you ready to move on to the next one?
No, sometimes I do miss them. Yeah, I do. Very often I do. And if I'm left kind of buzzing about it, I have a good feeling it works. If I'm not buzzing about it, I'm worried. Like, I don't feel good about this.
And that leads right into my next question that I was going to ask you before we start wrapping some stuff up here. If somebody is just, tipping their toe into the horror writing world, when they're trying to get started, maybe not thinking of like, oh, I want to get published and I want to be the next big name, but just trying to get a feel for it. What advice do you give those young authors who are trying to figure out how they're going to find their voice?
I'm going to sort of steal from Ray Bradbury, who always said, you should be reading something all the time. And he recommended that every night you read a short story, you read a work of nonfiction, and you try to write a short story every week. I think, and my advice for what it's worth, it's, I'm sure you'll find people who have different advice, but I think reading as much as you can of the genre, as well as things outside the genre. And I think learning your craft with short stories is the way to go. Some people decide they're going to write their first novel right away. And I think the novel should wait until you've worked on the voice and, practiced a few times. The nice thing about short stories is you can write several of them in a year. And you can work on your craft that way. Whereas the novel, that's a long time. That's a long narrative just to focus on first. That's what I would suggest.
Right, and I know your writing evolves as you age and you have more life experience. So I'm sure that, not to say that it's bad, but you probably have a different perspective of what you wrote early on compared to what you write now, right?
Yeah, I really struggled to figure out how to find my way around a story. It took a long time. It really did. And it is something you get better at. Yeah. And it really, people think writing is a talent. It's really a craft. It's really something, if you want to do badly enough, if you work hard at it, you read enough other people's writings, and you do it as much as you can, if not every day, then, frequently, eventually you get better at it. And my early attempts to write were not good. It took a long time to figure out how to tell the story.
But I think that's true of everything.
Yeah.
I think that's true of all of life. I mean, there's a fantastic interview, if you haven't heard it, with Jerry Seinfeld talking about the craft of being a comedian. And he just talks about people don't know how much work that is. I mean, it's a lot of work to craft that sort of set and stand in front of an audience and make it work. And you reference things from earlier. It's a huge amount of work. I think people just think comedians are just funny, and it just comes to them. I think the same thing is true certainly here. So I love your advice of starting with the short stories. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, everybody's path is different. It's not to say somebody can't, find their path by writing just novels. I'm sure they could, but I think if you're not sure what to do, I think that would be the way to do it.
Well, Steve, now that you are a horror author, because he does have a short story in our upcoming Phantom Menagerie, our anthology that we're putting together at Phantom History House. Everybody watch for that this summer.
Yes. And I'm such the horror writer.
Well, you're going to be a published horror author. You are.
But I mean, it is a very cool feeling to be able to say that, and it does inspire you to want to do more. And it makes me wonder, Douglas, for you, and I guess any writer, do you ever have the want or the desire to genre hop? Like, do you say, you know what, I'm going to write a romantic comedy? Or is it like horror is your thing?
It's everything I write wants to be horror. It's not really a conscious choice. I'm just weird, you
like what you like.
But I like what I like, and I like the genre, and I like the community, so I don't really fight it. And I'm perfectly happy being a genre writer. But it's not to say that I don't want to do a noir story, or mystery novel someday. Maybe I do. So,
right. And I think that some of those can kind of tie into horror as well. I mean, we all are, unfortunately, have to say, a lot of people are more familiar with films than they are with books, for example. So you have Silence of the Lambs was a psychological thriller and not really a horror story, but it's a horror classic at the same time. So, there's a lot of flexibility under that genre.
There's a writer named Douglas Winter, who's famously said, horror is not a genre, it's an emotion. So it's anything, arguably anything that is horror is something that makes you feel that. Yeah. And it could be Silence of the Lambs, or it could be Psycho, or it could be, Don't Look Now. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah, it could be The Trick.
The Trick.
A lot of things. Before we say goodbye, Doug, is there anything you wanted to share as far as what you've been working on or what's going on in the horror writers community that you'd like to share with everybody? Okay,
so yes. As for me, I have a couple of newish books. One of them is the Reattachment, which is actually a reissue of an older novella from Madness Heart Press. And I also have The Last Slaughter. You can find my books on Douglas Ford Writes. And as far as the community goes, something else, I have a short story collection called Let's Cut Up Dad coming out later this year, as well as a novella probably coming in 2025 called Who Dies First? And I'm working on another novel right now. Wow. As the community goes, if anybody's out there who is a writer or an aspiring writer, the Horror Writers Association is a great resource. And if you're in Southwest Florida, we do have a chapter of the Horror Writers Association. Somebody can go to horror.org and learn about that, or message me if you want more information about that organization and the chapter, which I'm the chair of.
Okay. Well, and I would say to that point that, Doug, I think you're doing, at least I know for the meetings that I have been around, I think you're doing a wonderful service to all those authors. It's a super supportive community. Yeah. Everybody's talking about what they're working on, and everybody's supporting them in that and sharing ideas. And I just think you're doing a wonderful service there and encouraging authors. And I feel like we all need to find our version of that. Whatever it is you're into and that you're doing, find a way to create supportive groups to encourage each other, whether in person or online.
It's a great community we have. And I'm lucky to have such great people around me. And thank you for hosting our meetings the way you have. It's been great.
We love having your group here. It's so much fun. And this is a good question for Kristen as we wrap things up. If somebody were to buy one of your books or short stories, would you prefer they buy them through like Amazon or through your website? What is best for you?
My website will take you to Amazon. And if in some cases, if there's something in particular you want, if you want to message me, I may have a copy I could sell you directly and send you a signed copy if anybody is interested in that.
That's always a plus.
Yeah, I'll do that, and you just have to message me and have a PayPal account. But Amazon's great. I also have things available at Godless if you like ebooks. You could get ebooks on Amazon and Barnes and Noble too. But Godless is a indie retailer that donates a portion of its profits to victims of sexual trafficking. So I think they're a good site to support.
Well, I love the idea of them contacting you directly and seeing if they can get a signed copy. I think, in fact, we should all do that anytime that you're going to be reading a book and you might have a chance to contact the author. It's very cool.
It's very cool. And of course, if you're watching us on Facebook or Instagram or even on YouTube, shoot us a message if you have trouble finding Douglas. We'll get you connected there as well.
And don't forget, as we already mentioned earlier, we are creating an anthology of stories about objects in the Phantom History House. So exciting. We've gotten connected with all of these horror authors. That's why we're talking. One of these we're talking to Doug tonight. So everybody, the Phantom Menagerie, stories inspired by Phantom History House. Each of the horror authors wrote a story about something that's here at Phantom History House, and they're really, really interesting. That's coming out this summer. And speaking of a signed copy, we will be having an event where you can come and get your signed copy or buy one from us, or whatever. So watch for that, everybody. Sign up for our newsletter so that you know that that's happening.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, remember, we want to say congratulations to our brides and grooms who we mentioned earlier tonight before we got started.
Danielle and David and Nikki and Andrew are going to be having weddings at Phantom History House This summer, they won a giveaway where we're giving them the use of our venue here. We're having wedding events now here. And any kind of wedding event can happen here. We're signing up people for bridal showers and getting ready events and all kinds of stuff. So we hope that you will consider that. Let people know that we're doing it. Doug, thank you so much. What an interesting conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
And thanks everybody for watching. Sign up for our newsletter or check our social media so you know who our guests will be, because we're trying to do these every Wednesday night at 7 Eastern.
Absolutely. We have next week scheduled already and are working on the one after that. So pay attention to our newsletter. We'll let you know what's going on.
All right. Thanks everybody so much. Thank you, Douglas.